the Atlantic Division will go through Florida at some point, right? Whether that is in the first round or the second round, like that team looks like a team that should contend for a top 3 spot in the division. Talk about getting Brandon Montour back, Aaron Ekblad back. If Sam Bennett is going to escape his latest, scare unscathed or relatively unscathed, which kind of looks kind of doubtful, but you never know. That's a team that they just have the firepower and the system and the structure to get in, right? And so to get an early season win over them, that last year, like Florida was their nightmare a year ago, even in the regular season. Like those were not great games for the Bruins. And so you still got to go down there and win. I think that can do a lot for you. In the regular season as well, like make it so you're not white knuckle riding every game. But this is something that I think that like these kind of games are going to help you down the stretch. Like these are playoff style games. When you hold the Red Wings to 1 goal and 23 shots, 8 fewer than their season average. The power play for Detroit vanished into thin air, like had almost nothing all night long. You come back from being down 0-2, like those are the kind of wins that I think this team needed a bit more of last year, if that makes sense. Like, because I think that when they got punched in the mouth by the Panthers, it was the first time they didn't punch the mouth in a while. And they were like, wait, how do we recover? How do we strike back? And by the time they kind of got it going, it was too late. Right. And so I think that is sort of, to have more of these kind of wins, especially early, I think it's only going to make you better in the long run for sure.
Absolutely. And looking at that game, there was maybe one negative, both in terms of that game and long term. You're going to be shorthanded on defense moving forward. I mean, Matt Grzelcyk is going to be out at least a couple of weeks, according to Jim Montgomery, which is tough for him because it seemed like he was really kind of playing his best hockey. Jim Montgomery even mentioned that. He was even getting like reps on the PK, getting involved there. So we all know how good he is with Charlie McAvoy as well. So Grzelcyk's going to be on the shelf. And now, again, it's not official yet. I have to imagine that Charlie McAvoy is probably not going to play on Thursday against the Maple Leafs after that high hit on Oliver Ekman-Larsson. So you're pretty much without 2 of your top 4 defensemen going into, again, a pretty key stretch here. If it's more than 1 game for McAvoy, you're looking at him missing out against Toronto, Detroit, Dallas is up next week. So tough hit there. So there's not really any way you can kind of sugarcoat that. A bad play by McAvoy after, guy went like Leroy Jenkins, had a great goal, and then immediately puts himself in a bad spot there against OEL. But how do you think they kind of adjust those absences? Like who could you see getting called up from Providence to get a bit of a run here?
Isn't this the perfect time to see Mason Lohrei? Like, wouldn't this be the perfect time to do that? You go back to when they sent him down at the end of training camp, and it was about, they said they want him to play some minutes. He needs minutes. Okay, well, power play 1 minutes just opened up, and LD1 just opened up as well, or LD2, depending on how you want to look at it, right? And so I think that is sort of this is a natural spot to put Lohrei up. I know that they've talked, there has been some talk of him coming up. Montgomery said as much on Tuesday, saying that he is in the mix. You also have some safer options, so to speak, with Ian Mitchell and Jake Saboril. But with that schedule you mentioned, Toronto, Detroit, you got Dallas, like, depending on how long you're without McAvoy, we know you're going to be without Grzelcyk, but like depending how long that is, I'd almost like to see, a little bit of trial by fire here, see what you got, and then reassess. And so this is a spot for him. It reminds me a bit of, back in 2007, 2008, years ago now, the Bruins were without Manny Fernandez and Tim Thomas, and they had to call up 20-year-old Tuukka Rask. He wasn't ready, but he got a win. He also took some lumps, but like it was like, you got to do it, right? And this may be a similar spot where they go, listen, our options are we have Dan Renouf, we have Ian Mitchell, we have Jake Saboril, we have Alec Regula, and we got Mason Lohrei. Of that grouping, I'd like to see Lohrei personally.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's something where it also depends on what the circumstances were. And as you said, if this was like Derek Forbort got hurt blocking a shot and was going to be out 2 or 3 games, and it's a third pairing role and you need PK minutes, I think that changes. With Grzelcyk being out, with McAvoy being out, with those minutes up for grabs higher up in the lineup, with those power play reps especially, now is the perfect time to see who you have. And again, if he struggles or there's going to be a few bumps along the way, like I think you can take that if a guy really builds off of it. Like even like look at Potter on Monday, right? Got pickpocketed by Sasha Barkov. Not the first NHLer to ever have that happen, but he learns on the fly. Not to say that Lohrei is going to match up against Austin Matthews and he's going to just completely build off of it, or he's going to be seamless in that role. But now it's time to see what you have in a guy. I mean, it's one thing if this guy popped a few games during the preseason. It's a testament to, I think, how quickly he's accelerated his timeline, that he was one of their last cuts. Like that they were really impressed by what he provided in terms of, making the simple, smart plays, really working on his D zone play. You're going to need that. And I think over this stretch where you're missing two defensemen who are really mobile with the puck and really interject some energy, it's kind of like what you said with like Potter of what dynamic he's provided. If you're trying to get an extra spot during this stretch here where you're going up against Detroit and Toronto and Dallas, if Lohrei can pop and can make a play or two that really energizes your team, you'll take that. And again, if that leads to him staying up here, if that leads to he goes back down, but he's got the confidence to really build off of that, and we see him back up here in middle of January for full time, like I think right now is the time to do it. Because again, like you could opt for Mitchell and Regula and all these guys, and it's probably a safer route, but you already seen it with Potter, right? Like, might as well embrace the youth movement because it really hasn't burned you yet so far this season.
FanDuel is the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
Two of those games might be right up his alley. They might be run and gun kind of games where, he doesn't have to worry about they have to win the game 2-1. Like that might be these might be two matchups, Detroit and Toronto, where, Lohrei is kind of in his element, right? Like he's able to make some plays here and he doesn't have to worry about, ending up on the shelf or getting benched because he turns it over. Like, so I just think that this whole season, this whole off season has been about going with upside over what is safe, right? It's the same reason why Johnny Beecher won the job over Patrick Brown. It's why Jacob Lauko won a job over Alex Chiasson. There's an element here of the Bruins going with upside over safety because, this is a kind of a found money kind of year for them in a lot of respects. No one thinks they're going to be very good, or,
Right.
We did, but the general public isn't like, it's not like, oh, this is another 62 win team. So you got some wiggle room here, and you're 8-0-1. That allows you to take a little gamble here or there if you gotta. And I think right now you gotta. Like if you're losing Grzelcyk and McAvoy, you need creativity on the back end. So bring up the guy who can bring some of that to the rink every night, and that's Mason Lohrei for me.
Yes, absolutely. And it's very funny how the narrative has changed. That I think people were expecting a really painful year after this offseason, and now where Bruins are sitting at 8-0-1. They've got Potter who's sticking around here. You have a potential top six center for the future. Lohrei could be in play. Like very quickly, how much of the narrative has changed, and all of a sudden, a season that looked like it was going to be very bleak is not only you're seeing results on the ice, but you have optimism for the future. So it's very funny, Ty, how that does change over the span of maybe just a couple of weeks here.